Good morning, everybody. Let's just wait a few minutes more, see if anybody else joins the live practice. In the meantime, I want to share a couple of things with you guys, and it's of course in regards to pranayama and in regards to questions that I have been receiving through email. And here is a document that I could share with you if you post your email on the chat, or better, even easier. So also those that are watching this class on the recorded version can have this document. If you want this document that I'm mentioning right now, and I'm going to read a little bit of it, you can send me an email saying, I would like the pranayama document. Just send me an email to andy@yogavedainstitute.com and just put in the subject, I would like the pranayama document, and I will send it to you. This is a document, it's a compilation. It's called Reflected in Traditional Text, and it was shared by a friend of mine, a yoga teacher, who put together the pranayama mentions in different texts, not in all texts, of course, but in a few important texts of yoga. And it's just interesting to see is, again, this in the traditional text, you see everything is said in short words. There's not a whole lot of information. It's precise and sometimes open. Yes, sometimes but it takes you to what matters. It tells you what's important. And the portion I want to read now is from the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, which is one of the main Hatha Yoga text when it comes to yoga. And it says in this portion that I wanted to read says, so when the whole system of the nadis, which is full of impurities, is cleaned, then the yogi becomes able to control the prana. Then he goes on to say, therefore, pranayama should be performed daily with sattvika buddhi, which it translates as intellect free from raja and tama. So this you see the importance of aiming towards a still practice, a steady, a calm practice, because we're not trying to bring a rajistic state, even though that could happen. As I was saying to one of you through email, all pranayamas have a calming effect in the mind, but depending on different factors, including how the pranayamas are being combined and my personal state of being at the moment that I'm doing the pranayama, I might get a slightly different effect. So you might feel a little more energized or a little bit more relaxed. Either way, those effects should sort of vanish as the practice finishes and you come back to saying the natural state of the result of pranayama. So if you're feeling extremely agitated after the practice, it might not be necessarily related to the practice itself. The practice simply enhanced this state in which you already are. Now, the practice itself can be adjusted so that it doesn't work that way, but we need to understand that it is not just one thing. In the same way, we cannot say that pranayama will heal on its own all of the imbalances. It will definitely help, and it could be the major participant on bringing balance to the body. But we know that there are other things that need to get done, like diet and sleep and so on and so on. Anyhow, then in the Hatha Yoga Pratipika, it goes to state one of the most important pranayamas, the Nadi Shodham, the alternate nostril breathing. It goes also to state the importance of Kumbhaka, but also the importance of not practicing Kumbhaka just out of the blue, just because, no, but having a clear guidance on how to practice Kumbhaka. There was another portion here that I wanted to read. So it says, the breath does not pass through the middle channel, Shushumna, because of the impurities of the nadis. So how can then success be attained? And how can there be the unmain avasta? And this is again, talking about the Nadi Shodham. Why I wanted to share this with you is, I said it in the first class, in the intro, the importance of these basic pranayamas and the importance of a steady, constant practice. I cannot stress enough these points of really devoting, to really engaging. Beyond commitment, there have to be a commitment, but beyond the commitment, truly engaging with these pranayamas, which is why we want to bring attention to one spot, to one place, to make sure that we are focused, that the mind is not wandering. If the mind is wandering, then therefore prana will be wandering too. So before looking beyond into these secret techniques or more powerful techniques or so on and so on, we must make sure that we address these techniques that not for nothing are repeated over and over in all of these texts. In particular, there are two. First, well, there are three, but the first one, which is the full yogi breath, it kind of is like, it's just there. No, it's a no-brainer, we could say. But the two that I mentioned is Nadi Shodham and Kapalbhati. Those two techniques have to be part of your daily practice. And just with those two techniques, combined with the full yogi breath, can take you to places that you would never imagine such a simple techniques could take you. And of course, with combination of others, if you have access to those, if you already know them, so on and so on, it will be perfect. But there is no an absolute need to know these more advanced secret techniques. Okay, so there was, yeah, I want to share something else, but I'll do that at the end if we have time. Let's, again, if you want the document, just send me an email, okay? If you don't send me an email, you won't receive this document. And if you have questions about what I just said, we can save them for the end. We are now going to start with the practice. And before we start with the practice, one of the advanced students asked if she could include kumbhakas, I'm sorry, the bandhas in every kumbhaka or in every retention. Means whether it's at the end of every round that we are holding the breath or at the end of the technique that we are holding the breath, if she could include the bandhas, as we did in the last class towards the end, in the last technique, in the Bastrika technique. And the answer is yes. If you are familiar with the bandhas, if you know how to use the bandhas because you were already taught by a teacher, and you are proficient in the practice and the use of the bandhas and know exactly when to use them, then absolutely yes, you can include your bandhas every time we practice retention, whether it's the Mahabandha or a combination of, which is the most traditional one when holding kumbhaka, internal kumbhaka at least, the Jalandhar and the Mula Bandha. I'm not going to go into that because you're supposed to know that if you already have learned the bandhas. If you have not, don't worry. There is no concern. There's nothing that you're missing that is going to make the practice different at this time for you. Okay, so let's begin. Those that are in the live class, just get ready. Make sure that your sitting position is firm, is comfortable, is steady, whether you are sitting in a chair, on a chair, or you are sitting on a cross-leg position in the floor. If you're sitting in a chair, make sure your feet are grounded, are flat on the ground. Make sure your spine is fairly straight, that the body is firm but relaxed. Equally, if you're sitting on the ground with your legs crossed, your spine must be straight, comfortably straight. The body firm but relaxed. Closing your eyes. And trying to keep the eyes closed throughout the practice as much as possible. If possible, throughout the whole practice, that would be perfect. And once you find that steady, still comfortable position, begin to bring yourself to the here and now. Connecting with everything that is present around you and within. Connecting with your heartbeat. Connecting with your breath. Without controlling, simply become aware of all of this. Making a commitment to remain present throughout the practice, every minute, every second. If the mind wanders, bring it back to the breath. You can now begin to deepen your inhalations using the full yogi breath technique, having deep inhalations and complete exhalations. After a few more rounds, you can begin to apply internal retention just for a few moments. With each round, as you inhale deep, just hold the breath for a few moments. And if you are using the bandas, you can apply them too. Without any strain, without forcing the retention, just holding comfortably for a few counts. And then exhaling complete, emptying the lungs. And repeating. Keeping the mind focused in the action, following the path of prana. Remember to take anywhere between 5 and 10 seconds in the inhalation. And one last round. Once you're done, just take a moment to contemplate. Without trying to control the breath, just follow the path of it. Resting your left hand on your left knee or thigh in chin mudra, index finger and thumb touching the very tip. Bringing the right hand in front of you, bending the index and middle finger. Remember, you're using the thumb to cover the right nostril and the ring finger to cover the left nostril. Taking a deep inhalation through both nostrils. And exhaling complete. Covering the right nostril, inhale through the left. And covering left, exhale right. Inhaling right immediately. Cover and exhale left. In left. Out right. In right. Out left. Keep going on your own. Slow and deep inhalations. And complete exhalations. Trying to keep both inhalation and exhalation as even as possible. If it helps, you can use counts, counting with ohms. You can choose to simply count and try to keep it even, or choose a number. 4, 5, 6, 3, if that is correct to you. And inhaling in that same count of ohms and exhaling in the same count of ohms. Keeping the spine straight, neck and head in line with the spine. Following prana as it goes in the body, down into the base of the spine, and out. Get prepared to finish. On the next exhalation through the left nostril, release both nostrils and inhale deep through both nostrils, holding this inhalation for as long as comfortable. Once you're done holding, relax the breath without controlling the breath. Just follow the path of it, the path of prana, as it goes in and out. Now getting ready for the practice of Kapalbhati. Remembering Kapalbhati, you're using an active exhalation, active, forceful, fast, strong, followed by a passive inhalation. You want to keep your lungs as empty as possible while you perform this technique. On the first round, we will begin with 30 repetitions, 30 exhalations. If 30 is too high for you right now, then do as many as possible. If you can do a little bit more than 30, 35, or 40, you are also welcome to do so. Remember, at the end of the round, with the last exhalation, we inhale deep and hold that inhalation for as long as comfortable. Remember, if you are practicing with the bandhas, you can also include the bandhas there. So we take a deep inhalation through both nostrils and exhale and begin. Become aware of the prana around the chest area. Getting ready for the second round. This time we will perform 40 repetitions, 40 exhalations. Getting ready, inhaling deep through both nostrils. Exhaling. And begin. Take a moment to contemplate. Become aware of the prana permeating your whole body. Now getting ready for our third and final round of Kapalbhati. On this third round, we will go up to 50 repetitions. If you cannot make it to 50, then do as many as possible. If you can go up to 55 or 60 repetitions, then feel free to do so. Remember, at the end of the last repetition, to inhale deep and hold that inhalation for as long as comfortable. Keeping the mind focused on the chest area, on the lower chest area. Getting ready to begin. Inhale deep through both nostrils. Exhale. And begin. Taking a moment to contemplate without controlling the breath, just allowing it to be. And just follow it as it goes in and out of the body. Become aware of the pulsating prana in your body. From time to time, bring awareness to the base of the spine. See if you can notice anything different or unusual happening around that area. Take mental notes of anything unusual or different happening in the whole body. Now getting ready for the next technique, the Bhastrika Pranayama. Making sure the spine is straight, neck and head align with the spine. Remember, during this pranayama, especially during the retention portion of it to keep attention, mindful awareness in the lower section of the chest. We'll begin with the first round. Remember, 10 repetitions per round. Remember, Bhastrika is made of both forceful inhalation and forceful exhalation. So it's active inhalation, active exhalation. As you inhale, the belly goes out, and as you inhale, it comes. As you exhale, it goes in. Getting ready. Inhaling deep. Exhaling complete. And begin. Getting ready for the second round. Inhaling deep. Exhale complete. And begin. And getting ready for the third and last round. Again, 10 repetitions, holding the breath for a comfortable amount of time. If you feel rush of prana or dizziness, lightheaded, suspend the inhalation, the retention right away. Inhaling deep. Exhaling complete. And begin. If you wish to lay down on your back for a few seconds in Shavasana, you can do so. You can also remain seated. Make sure the body is firm but relaxed. Letting the breath flow naturally. Keeping awareness of the breath, but letting it flow naturally. Gently bring your awareness to the base of the spine. Feeling the accumulated prana sit at the base of the spine. And slowly begin to bring yourself back. If you're in a laying down position, come gently back to a sitting position. Keeping the eyes closed, take a deep inhalation and exhale completely. And again, deep in and fast. And let go. And again, one last time, inhale deep and fast. And let go. And gently open your eyes. As well as with meditation practice, a pranayama practice of this kind, it might take you, depending on the individual, might take different individuals shorter or longer times to be able to fully return. That is one of the reasons why it is useful. It's not necessary, but it is useful. And again, if you're holding a class with a big number of people, then it's probably necessary to do it to ground the energies back. So something as simple as this little reminder that we did towards the end to bring the awareness and the prana back down to the base of the spine will be enough. And this will guarantee that different people, which of course are in different spaces, don't remain too spacey, we could say. Yeah. So, and by remaining spacey, of course, well, they feel like they don't want to come back from the practice, from that space they feel they're in. This again will help to ground, to bring us back to this level. Yeah. And this don't seems to be important with many pranayama practices, because the pranayama practice itself is not necessarily made with the intention to explore these subtle spaces of existence, yeah, to leave the anamaya kosha, for saying the physical body, to go into the manomaya kosha, the sheet of the mind, or the pranamaya kosha, the one where prana is made. So it is beneficial also if you're feeling like I just don't feel spacey, I feel floating, yeah, or whichever word works for you, to gently bring again your energy back to the base of the spine. I wanted to read this from Swami Shivananda. This is a book that we recommend to every single student that comes to trainings with us, or anytime we have a chance. It's called Bliss Divine, and is a very interesting book in a sense that it's, you could say, is the greatest hits of Swami Shivananda, and is the precise information on almost every subject in yoga. So it's a very useful book to just open a page randomly and see what you find, but also as a reference if there is a specific subject you want to know something about. It does not go in an extended explanation of all the things as he usually goes in his books dedicated to specific subjects, but it is a good point of reference. And here, when it comes to control of prana, he says, what control of prana means. And he says, prana occupies a very important place in the Hindu religion. I will expand that to just the practice of yoga itself. Prana is related to mind, and through mind to will, and through will to the individual soul, and through this to the supreme soul. If you know how to control the little waves of prana working through the mind, then the secret of subjugating the universal prana will be known to you. So it's a gentle dance in between the prana that we are accumulating and the prana that already exists in the mind. Yeah. So we are using the mind to control or to attempt to control prana, and also using the prana that we're accumulating to help the mind control itself. So it's an ambiguous or a symbiotic relationship that is happening. And this is why it's important, again, to keep the mind focused. Um, even the slightest distraction um, could have a take you into a completely different effect. This is also why it's very important when taking pranayama to the next step, which means going into the more advanced practices, that we are in the right space. And this doesn't only apply to saying, oh, I'm eating the right foods to some extent, I am leading or living a righteous life to some extent. um, it leads to even the kind of thoughts that we are having. Yeah. So I give you an example. If you just came out of a strong argument with somebody, an argument that shocked you, and you go right into your practice, and I don't mean right into your practice 2 minutes after, which of course is it will be really um, detrimental, but even half an hour or an hour after having this argument, you go into your practice. The most gentle thing that could happen is that you don't get into the practice and you just don't feel it, and you just go through and it's like it wasn't. That's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is that you in in familiar terms, you open a door that you were not expecting or wishing to open when you begin to play with prana. And this is due to the fact that, well, I wasn't paying attention, I wasn't there. Yeah, it's like I don't know if I'm making more sense, but it's like going out to the street in a very angry mood. I'm just angry and I'm not afraid or scared of saying it. I just go out and everybody's going to notice I'm angry. What are you going to attract? You're going to attract the same thing that you are putting into the world. So you're going to find that people that might get angry at you, or the situations might turn into that, correct? And somebody that's smiling and happy, well, it might bring that into. And when you're doing pranayamas, it's the same thing. When you are um, opening these doors, you are going to attract different energies. So it's very important when, especially intending to use pranayams for these higher purposes, to be very certain that you are in the right space. So if you had an argument or something in your mind that is keeping you very distracted, you better take care of that, or do a very gentle pranayama practice, which is just deep breathings and maybe the nadi shodham, and you leave it there. That on its own might help you to balance these energies again, to get into the right mood, and then you can go into deeper practices. Even just now, as I was, and as a teacher, this is another challenge when you're guiding, leading classes. It's not recommended to fully practice with the students. And um, actually, I mentioned, I believe, in the first class, in the intro class, that I faded once doing pranayama, and it was during a class. It was while I was teaching a class. It wasn't while I was practicing. And the reason is because when we are teaching, we are splitting our attention in between the students and yourself. So when doing very strong practices, you're not putting full attention in what you're doing because, as I said, you're splitting the attention, and that might take to, well, little slips or accidents, like it was my case some years back. And even just now, I decided to do, maybe you, I'm sure you did not notice because you had your eyes closed, but just now While we were doing the Bastrika, I decided to do one full round with you guys. And a thought came to my mind of something I wanted to say to you. And as soon as that thought came, which it happened to come while I was holding my breath, I lost it. If you go back to the video, maybe you'll see me shaking and putting my hands down. It's that fast. That's how much it takes. When you are really sort of, you could say, playing with this dam that is full of prana, we need to be cautious, not to be scared. And even in this book, Swami Shivananda also speaks about, I'm not going to read it because it's a little long, but I can share it later with you. The popular fears on pranayama practices. I can share it with you because maybe you don't have this book and you're going to be wondering, well, what is it? What does it say? I can tell you later. For now, I want to see if there are any comments, sharings, or questions. I have one more thing I want to share, but first I want to open the forum and see if anybody have anything to say.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
You were mentioning, like, if we're in a bad state, before doing pranayama, then basically it's a better idea for us to wait until we're in a better state before we do pranayama.
If you're not in the right state, yes.
Yeah, like if we had just gotten into a fight, or we're super sad, or just not in the right state of mind, frame of mind, then basically it's better to wait to do a pranayama practice.
To wait, or to do more gentle pranayamas that are just simply, again, moving the prana, but not in a strong way and not in a full practice. And this same thing applies to food too. In Ayurveda, I said, in yoga, if you just, same story, the exact same story, but with food, do not go and eat right away. If you're in a state of extreme emotional feelings, or you're too sad or too angry, do not go and eat right away. You're putting poison in your body. So when we're in those states, we need to just, and yes, it is it, like in this case, if you're very angry, we know that deep breathings, gentle, calm breathings will help. Yeah, so that's pranayama. But like I said, it's a gentle form of pranayama, and I'm using just one technique. I'm not doing retentions. I'm not doing any of these things. I'm just breathing, trying to clear that out. And so that's very different than the practice we just did. Yeah, does that make sense? Okay. So again, to do anything, if you have to make a decision, you have to make a crucial decision in your life, and you're in one of those states, don't make that decision. Take a moment. And if you cannot take a moment, well, that's going to be a challenging one. You might regret it. And again, because you weren't in the right space. Yeah. Anyone else?
Hi there, Andy.
Hey, Trevor.
You can hear me okay? I'm just on my phone today because I'm in China and my laptop wasn't playing the game. I just have a technical question as far as applying the bandhas when you're doing the breath, specifically when you're doing the full yogic breath. Because obviously when you do the full yogi breath, the idea is to let the diaphragm pull down, and that makes your abdomen expand out. So when you apply the bandhas, do you apply both of the Mula and Uddiyana bandha? Because that will then obviously pull the lower abdomen back in. Is that?
Well, you're a yoga teacher, right?
Yes.
So you're familiar with the bandhas. Okay. Well, no, I'm just asking this because if you have no clue of the bandhas, then we will just move on. In this particular case, when you're, okay, there's two things I need to say. I don't know which one is more important. I'm just going to say both. Yes, you're doing Mula Bandha and Jalandhara Bandha, not Uddiyana Bandha. Okay, that's that might answer the question itself. But on the other hand, Mula Bandha, and you mentioned Uddiyana or Mula, the contraction?
Well, Mula Bandha was fine to apply, but I found doing Uddiyana Bandha quite uncomfortable.
Yeah, Uddiyana, we could say, is almost impossible to do.
Yeah.
Now, also, we must remember that these locks, these bandhas, can be applied without the physical exercise itself. And this is a much more advanced form of the bandha, in the same way that I can do Nadi Shodham without closing my nostrils. And I know this, if you never heard of it, it's like, that's I never heard of that. It is completely possible because we are talking about prana. Again, we're not talking about the physical body. All of these things that we translate into the physical body is just so we can grasp in a more gross way what these concepts and exercises mean. The bandhas, the exercises of the physical application of the bandhas, is not it. That's just, we could say, the beginning. Because at some point, the more proficiency I gain, I learned to go into the subtle body and still release those locks or apply the bandhas to release the granthis, the knots, without the physical exercise. Again, these, if we're new to bandhas, sounds like nearly impossible. Remember, prana, in the same way that it is very physical and we can feel it, it's also been manipulated not in necessarily a physical way. It can be manipulated in a physical way by moving my hands or applying a bandha or so on, so on. But it can also be manipulated in a more subtle level. So I can still apply all three bandhas without contracting any muscle in my body, if that makes sense. With that said, yes, Uddiyana Bandha, almost impossible, I would say, to do the physical version with an internal retention. It can still happen. It can still happen in my own experience. I can still feel how, and this is, of course, because, again, we're going from the physical, from the gross to the subtle. And when we're going from the gross to the subtle, you can feel how there is still a physical stimulation. So even in an internal retention, means when I inhale and hold, I can still feel the bandha being applied in a natural way. Yeah. But in this particular case, the easiest way to answer the question would be to simply apply Mula Bandha and Jalandhara Bandha. Yeah, so the diaphragm is still relaxed. Does that make sense?
Yes,
and you're
totally.
you're still able to, which is what in this case these two bandhas are trying to do, which is not allow prana to go up and apana to go down. Yeah, to leave through that gate or through this gate, to change, to reverse the process. So they hit top here and bottom and turn around, and then the final, well, not the final, but one of the steps of these exercises, which is to unite prana and apana. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Andy.
No problem. Anyone else? Okay. This goes in relation to a question that somebody else asked via email, and this is, where should I feel prana? That wasn't the question, but that's my note. Where should I feel prana? And the question was more of, well, should I focus on my chest? Should I focus on my third eye? Where should I focus? So we agree that, well, the chest, especially the lower chest, is the safest and easiest way to begin to feel prana. But once that is done, then I will start noticing, and that's why I remind you to take mental notes, to pay attention to what is happening in the body, because you will begin to feel prana in other areas. Mostly you're going to start feeling it in the energy centers, in the chakras. And from there, well, you will begin to feel it in other areas. But the first area that most of people feel it and experience it is in the chest. But then you might start feeling it, noticing it in your third eye or in any of the other energy centers. So once you get to that point where you are feeling it everywhere, where you are not, where prana is just not flowing out of control, but is located in very specific spots in the physical body, then you can begin to try to manipulate it, to move it, to play with it. And these are stages that in some cases might take years or decades, not to some students. Some students might take a few days. Everybody's different, but don't rush this. The first thing is to become aware that this is there. So it's not that there is a right place or a wrong place. And of course, also the safety issue that we already talked about, which is to make sure that the prana is not rushing up, and also keeping my awareness in the lower chest helps with that. It is not guaranteed that it will not happen, but it will help because we are keeping our attention where the prana is actually being mostly accumulated. And also journaling is it's very useful to journal your experience after the class, after the practice. I'm assuming you're doing this practice out of this time we're spending together, and to journal what is it that you're experiencing. You will be amazed and surprised by these journaling exercises, and then coming back to them later. So I highly recommend you to take notes after your practice if you can. And well, yeah, this I was going to say too. I already kind of spoke about it. No, the controlling the mind. If the mind is not controlled, then means it's distracted. If the mind is distracted and is wandering, that means the prana will also follow that path. So very important to keep your mind in the action. That will do with from my side. If there is any other question, then this will be the time, or comments.
I actually have another question.
Absolutely.
First of all, thank you so much for answering all my questions in the emails as well.
No problem.
But I was thinking, like, in terms of if we're doing the 8 limbs in sequence, and it's like the asanas going to pranayama to meditation,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm teaching beginners, and usually I find it easier just to start off, sitting in meditation and teaching a little bit of pranayama, maybe resting a little bit, and then doing the asanas. So it's like going in the opposite, sequence. And even for myself, I often find it easier. I just wake up and then I start with meditation, and then then I'll do some pranayama, and then take a little tea break, and then do my asana practice. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering if I should really be doing it the other way, though.
Yeah, I can say that you will find different answers for this question, which makes me think, well, is there really a right way or a wrong way? There is a misconception with the Raja Yoga, with the 8 limbs that Patanjali gave us, and is that they must be followed in the order that he described them, from 1 to 8, 1 being the yamas, and the 8 being the samadhi, and the misconception is that, well, if I have not done 1, then I should not move to 2, and therefore to 3, 4, 5. And it doesn't work quite that way. Yeah, I see it similar to many other processes that happen in nature. But take, for instance, the development of a human being, from the womb. It's not like this happens first. Yes, certainly some things take place first or are happening faster, but many things are happening at the same time, right? It's not like we cannot do anything else until we finish this. No, but it's important, and these changes depending on the individual, depending on your personal karmas. Yeah, certain people should focus on certain things first, but not because a teacher is saying it or not because somebody else is saying it, but because of those particular traits, those particular karmas of that particular individual. Yeah, take for instance the yamas and the niyamas. Some people feel very proficient in the naturally proficient without having to practice them, some of the yamas and the niyamas. And some other people feel the opposite about about the same exact teaching, that the other person feels like, oh, this comes very natural to me. So could we say that everybody should start with the same? Not really. We should start with what is most important for us. And by most important, I don't mean what we like the best, but what we are lacking the most. Yeah. So when it comes to what should I do first in the morning, there are many different views. Some people would say that, well, in the morning you should wake up and go right away into meditation. That's the way I do it. And there is a reason for that. It's not that, well, some people like it that way. There is a reason. The mind is calmer. There is less vrittis at the time that when you wake up, the mind is coming from a very calm space. So there is less vrittis, there's less thoughts. And because there's less thoughts, it's easier to go into a meditative state. But that doesn't apply to everybody, because some people that are in a very tamasic state, you wake them up and you put them into meditation and they go back to sleep. So if a person is very rajistic, they will wake up and feel like, sure, I can sit down and meditate, because my mind, if I let it go for 5 more minutes, it's gonna be impossible to do this, right? So you see how we need to, and that's why when you do an Ayurvedic consultation, you ask all of these questions so you can say, okay, let's find out, based on the information that this person is providing, what is the best course of action. Yeah. And whatever else we're reading in books, even if they're traditional texts, they're nothing but recommendations. They're not the way that should be done. Very few times you find these cases where this should be done that way. No, certainly for somebody that, and here is where it begins to get confusing, because certainly it will most likely for most of people not work if I just jump into meditation right away. Step number 7. Yeah, if I just go into dhyana, then most likely I will not get the full benefits of it, because I'm skipping a very important part of reaching dhyana, which is dharana, concentration. If I'm not able to reach concentration, how am I going to reach a meditative state? I might still reach it by chance, by coincidence, by the grace of God. But can I go to that space by command? And that is what we're aiming. That's why Patanjali laid down this guidance. Because if you follow the guidance, you will be able to reach dhyana at will, anytime, any moment, because you're able to control the mind. But to control the mind, we need to control the senses. So I need to practice pratyahara. If I don't practice pratyahara, the withdrawal of the senses, the control of the senses, then I will not be able to focus my mind in one thing, because the senses are just all over the place. So you see, there is a correlation there, definitely. There is a correlation. But, okay, Michelle, see you later. Thanks for participating. But it's not quite as said 1, 2, 3, 4, and the five yamas, and then the 5 niyamas, and it is not quite that way. There is true. There is a correlation. There is a sort of order, but that order is not rigid. It's flexible. Yeah. Certainly, like I said, the meditation case is the most obvious one, because now it's just like everybody wants to meditate, everybody meditates, but nobody really meditates, no? And the reason is not because they're doing something wrong with the technique itself, is because we skip very important steps that are going to allow us to reach a meditative state. Yeah. So why asana is first and then pranayama is second? Because by controlling the body, this is the most basic one, by controlling the body, then I can forget about the body, which is also important for reaching meditation. If I cannot sit still, then meditation will most likely become a challenge on its own. If I cannot sit still, pranayama will become a challenge on its own. So asana is meant to strengthen the body, among other things, of course. And then when the body is strong and I can sit still with my spine straight and not feel like something is hurting or so on and so on, this is thanks to asana. No? But that doesn't mean you cannot wake up in the morning and go into a meditation and then do your pranayama practice, and then maybe later on do your asana practice. It doesn't mean that. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Perfect. So unless anybody else have anything to say, I will then finish this meeting. Wishing you all a great weekend. Have a beautiful weekend. Thank you for showing up again, to those that showed up for the live practice. Questions and comments are always welcome on my email. And I repeat once again, if you want this document that I was reading from at the beginning of the class, you need to send me an email and put on the subject that you wish to get the pranayama document. And then I will see you next week, hopefully. And have a great weekend. Have a great end of week and weekend. See you later, guys. Take care.